right, so this lesson 9221 is titled Graphing Sine and Cosine Functions with Amplitude and Midline. So by the end of the lesson, you'll be able to identify the midline and amplitude of sine and cosine functions, okay? So have any of you tried graphing any of these or seen the graphing in Desmos? So you can use the Desmos graphing calculator and it will graph these for you. First, we had to learn how to do it by hand, but any of the ones you see today can also be graphed in the graphing calculator. So we're going to write our two equations and show how they're transformed or shifted or stretched or compressed, okay? So the A in front of the trig function, in front of the graph, it's going to change that amplitude. So the A is going to stand for amplitude. And then at the end of the equation, you're going to have a plus or a minus D, so plus or minus some number. That's going to add or subtract to your sine or cosine. That's going to shift your graph up or down, meaning it's going to change that midline. Okay? Let me give you guys a chance to catch. All right, so for example number 1, it says, given the equations below, identify the amplitude, the midline, and the period for each of them. All right, so for A here, we have the equation 2 times the sine of x. What is that 2 position in? It's in the A position, meaning it's going to change the amplitude to 2. But nothing is going to happen with the midline. So the midline is going to stay at 0, and nothing changes with the period, so it's going to stay at the standard 2 pi. Okay? Equation B, we have the cosine of x minus 3. The amplitude doesn't change, so it's going to stay at 1. You could even think of it as there's a 1 in front of that cosine of x that you can't see, right? So there's always a 1 there. And then the midline is going to move down 3 because it's minus 3 right there. So your midline will be at y equals negative 3. Nothing's going to change about the period, so it's going to stay at 2 pi. When we're done, in your groups of 4, you guys are going to do C and D together. On page 38, we're going to do the left 3 problems together, and then in your groups of 4, you guys are going to do the right 3 problems together. They want you to look at the graph and see if you can write its equation. This one starts at 0, 0, so it's going to be sine, but the amplitude is stretched all the way up to 3. If you want to count it or write where that 3 is coming from, so when you look back at it, you can see what's happening there. This one is example C. This one is shifted. If you notice, it's going to start or have a midline at negative 4. So if it goes down 1, 2, 3, 4, then you need to have your minus 4 right here. It doesn't start at that midline, it starts up above it. So that it should indicate to you that that's a cosine instead of a sine. It has an amplitude of 1. We're good. Okay? Any questions on C? 3 sine of x. And then E has a couple things going on. First thing you want to do is trying to figure out, it's really light. It didn't duplicate very well. First thing you want to do is try and figure out where that midline is at. So it looks like it's at negative 1. That's going to be your shift down, so minus 1 at the end. Then from there, you need to decide if it's sine or cosine. Does the graph start at the midline, or does it start shifted up? That would give you cosine, right? Then you want to count your amplitude. 1, 2, 3, 4. So it's going to be the 4. Page 39, it says you're going to graph the following functions on the same axes. And if you have different colors, that would be great. So on the same axes, they want you to graph 6 times the sine of x and 6 times the sine of x plus 4. So in your groups of 4, if you guys could share different colors, it could be highlighters, markers, colored pencils, colored pens, whatever, that would be great. There's 2 on page 39, and then there's 2 on page 40, or 1 on page 40, okay?